Murphy was born a world traveler, the son of a U.S. diplomat. By the time he was 12 years old, he had lived in Milan, Paris, Rome, and Washington. The one constant was food, really good food. It is those early lessons that have served him well through culinary school and working at some of the top restaurants in the U.S. and abroad.
He's now one of the top chefs and restaurateurs in the country with the popular Landmarc, Ditch Plains, Kingside, and the newly opened Gray Salt. He also has a catering company, Benchmarc Events. He's recently wrote his first cookbook, Seasoned with Authority, Confident Home Cooking. And we are thrilled to welcome Marc Murphy to the dish.
Well, thank you for having me here.
And you've brought us a light breakfast, a heap and helping of hospitality here.
Well, you know, it's the holiday time. You got to eat. You got to eat well. You got to bring the family together.
What are we looking at? This massive thing in front of me.
Well, this is a rib roast. It's basically rib eye. We've roasted that in the oven with a nice amount of salt and pepper on it. But that's the name of the book, Seasoned with Authority, so I have to mention that. We have some Brussels sprouts. We've also got some fennel gratin. It's one of my favorite dishes. And my daughter's favorite dish right here, which is the roasted potatoes with rosemary.
And in my cup?
Now, this is a rice pudding, and on top of that it's chestnut. It's a recipe that my great aunt actually penned from her grandmother, and I have it the way she wrote it. She was a school teacher in the south of France, and it's the handwriting is so beautiful. I actually got a picture of it, and it's in the book as well. But it's a chestnut recipe from many generations ago.
Family plays a huge role in your interest in cooking, doesn't it?
I mean, I grew up, as you mentioned earlier, I was born in Milan. I moved around a lot. My father was an American diplomat. So people say, you know, where'd you get your training? Well, the first training is actually developing a palate. And I think living in France and Italy and having a mother and a grandmother who cooked really well, and just everybody obviously was always so interested in food.
Is it true that your brother is sort of the reason you went to culinary school?
He did. Well, I was living in New York. I didn't know what to do. I was helping out his girlfriend at the time, like a handyman for all her friends, and I was living on his couch, and I kept cooking dinner all the time for them. And he goes, "You seem to like this cooking thing. Why don't you go to cooking school and get a job and get out of the house?" So that's what I did. So he sent me there. He basically said, "Yeah, go ahead, go to cooking school. Why not?" And I did. It was a lot of fun.
Given your background, you could have written any kind of cookbook you wanted to, but you did one for the home cook, which I love.
Well, you know, my restaurants are all, I thrive on like a neighborhood restaurant. I worked in high-end restaurants. I worked for Ducasse in Monte Carlo. I worked in Le Cirque for a long time. And when it came down to do my own restaurant, I did Landmarc. That was my first one. I opened a little over 10 years ago in Tribeca. And I wanted a restaurant where people wouldn't come 3 times a year, but 3 times a week. And it's really accessible. And that's where the cookbook went as well. I wanted recipes that were not too complicated. I wanted ingredients that you didn't have to go forage for in the woods. I mean, things you can normal food you can buy in a grocery store. So that's really where I went with the book. I want people to buy it. Well, of course I want people to buy it, but I want them to get it dirty in the kitchen. I want people to cook with it. That's what I want.
You want them to really use it, You were saying you pretty much built Landmarc by yourself with your own hands.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine, and he had some tools. I bought some tools, and my wife and I bought this little building in Tribeca a long time ago, and we decided, and I put this thing together. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a friend of mine who was at an architect firm, so he helped with the plans a little bit and getting them filed, because that's a whole complicated mess. But yeah, I was cutting the steel and putting the electrical in, and dealing with contractors.
So you know how it all works top to bottom.
Well, that's the thing. And as a chef, you can cook all you want, but you got to know how to fix stuff too. Because if you have your own restaurant, stuff's always going to go wrong.
Well, so many people waking up are going to see you and say, "Oh, that's the guy from Chopped." Did you ever, when you were, unclogging toilets and fixing fryers, think that you would have sort of this crossover really into like lifestyle branding?
It is pretty amazing. It's been going on now for over 7 years now. I think we shot last week. We're up to over 350, 370 episodes. And it's a great show. It's fantastic to see the people that come and compete, so passionate about food. And it's wonderful. And how did I get in? People ask me how I got onto it. I don't know, really. They called me up. They sent me a tape of the demo of the original pilot, and they said, "You want to come and do this?" I was like, "Sure, it looks like fun." And years later, we're still doing it, and people seem to love it more and more. I have to
applaud you, because some of the things you eat, I would not. I'm thankful. I don't have to push around to play. Well, as I hand you this dish and get your signature on it, we want to ask you if you could have this meal with any person, past or present, who would that person be?
You know, I've had this question asked before, and I've always said Winston Churchill. I always find him fascinating.
That's a great choice.
Love reading about him and listening to his speeches.
And you'd have an after-dinner cigar with him, probably. Too.
Why not? A little cognac and a cigar. I'm into it.
Chef Marc Murphy, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
For more on Marc Murphy and the dish, please head to our website at cbsthismorning.com.